Hi, I'm Ben Shapiro, and this is Reality Check. There's only one way to explain the new proposal by Speaker of the House John Boehner and other top Republicans for stopping President Obama's executive amnesty. They don't want to stop it at all. Here's the story. Republicans have two options, the smart option and the stupid option. The smart option would be for Republicans to pass a short-term continuing resolution to fund the government through January. That would allow newly elected Republicans to come into office and take power in the Senate. Then Republicans could do what Congresses have always done. They could avoid passing omnibus spending bills, which tie all the spending together and lead to shutdowns, and instead, they'd fund the government through separate appropriations bills, one per department. That delinks funding for the Defense Department, for example, from funding for Obama's executive amnesty. Obama would have a pretty tough time vetoing a standalone defense funding bill that has nothing to do with executive amnesty. And then there's the stupid option. Republicans could push forward an omnibus spending bill that would completely fund the government through next September, but only fund the Department of Homeland Security and Obama's executive amnesty through next March. That option would effectively allow 60 days of funding for Obama's program to give work permits to millions of illegal immigrants. Now, President Obama probably won't accept the deal and will shut down the government over the failure to fully fund that executive amnesty. Then Speaker Boehner will cave, and he'll fund the entire program. We know he'll do this because he did this 2 years ago with regard to the infamous Obamacare government shutdown. But let's say for the sake of argument that Obama signs the bill. There's still no guarantee that Speaker Boehner will fight over Department of Homeland Security funding in March either. In fact, certain Republican congresspeople have already indicated he won't. Well, naturally, John Boehner is pursuing the stupid option. Why? Not because he's stupid, but because he likes Obama's executive amnesty. See, President Obama's executive amnesty allows Boehner to sign off on the establishment Republican soft on immigration policy while simultaneously complaining about the great dictator Obama. He can win points with the base by bashing Obama, and at the same time, he can greenlight Obama's immigration policy, which Republican establishment types from the Wall Street Journal to Jeb Bush to the Chamber of Commerce have been pushing relentlessly as quote-unquote comprehensive immigration reform. Obama has given them cover. All they have to do now is whine about Obama being a big, bad tyrant and then fund his tyranny. They can pop the cork in the back offices secretly while hypocritically blasting Obama for seizing their power in public. They're playing conservatives for suckers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or click here to give a quick donation. Hi, I'm Ben Shapiro, and this is Reality Check. After the last election cycle, conservative columnist Charles Krauthammer wrote what has now become the conventional wisdom in conservative circles with regard to Hispanic immigrants. He wrote, quote, "They should be a natural Republican constituency, striving immigrant community, religious, Catholic, family-oriented, and socially conservative. On abortion, for example, the principal reason they go Democratic is the issue of illegal immigrants." This argument has driven many conservatives, including the entire upper echelon of the Republican Party, to push for legalization of millions upon millions of illegal immigrants. The solution, Krauthammer suggests, to the problem of shifting demographics is this, quote, "border fence plus amnesty." Yes, amnesty. Use the word. Reality check. There are individual Hispanic immigrants who are natural conservatives. But to suggest that conservatives are one piece of amnesty legislation from victory across the broad swath of Hispanic immigrants, it just ain't true. So, are Hispanics in America a striving immigrant community, religious, Catholic, family-oriented, socially conservative? Let's look at some of the numbers. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, 57% of new immigrant households with kids were using at least one welfare program in 2009. Overall, 37% of immigrant households are on a welfare program compared with just 22% of native-born Americans. So yeah, immigrants are dependent on government by a far larger margin than native-born Americans, which means they tend to lean left on the question of big government. By the way, polls show that Hispanic immigrants lean left on the issue of big government. An April 2012 Pew Hispanic poll showed 81% of Hispanic immigrants want bigger government with more services. Only 41% of Americans overall want bigger government with more services. Just 12% of Hispanic immigrants want smaller government with less services. Exit polls in 2012 showed that 61% of Hispanics wanted Obamacare expanded or left as is, which makes sense. Virtually all of the countries from which Hispanic immigrants come are socialist in orientation. Many of them are socialist dictatorships. And America no longer bothers to push ideological integration into a small government philosophy. Well, how about that notion that Hispanics are a burgeoning religious class who agree with conservatives on social issues? Not so much. 53% of Hispanic children are now born out of wedlock. According to 2012 exit polls, 59% of Hispanic voters wanted same-sex marriage legalized. 66% said abortion should be legal in most or all cases. And in their own lives, Hispanics are becoming less, not more religious. 1 in 4 Hispanic adults, according to Pew, are now former Catholics. Rising numbers of Hispanics are non-religious. Overall, the Catholic share of Hispanics has dropped 12 percentage points over the last 4 years alone. And even so-called religious Catholic Hispanics tend toward leftism. The poll shows 49% of Catholic Hispanics favor same-sex marriage. Overall, 58% of Catholic Hispanics identify as Democratic or leaning that way. Does that sound like a naturally conservative constituency just an amnesty away from voting for the right? And yet this seems to be the conservative plan, which is absolute lunacy. As Mark Steyn wrote after the 2012 election regarding amnesty, he said, "So, if I follow correctly, instead of getting 27% of the 10% Hispanic vote, Republicans are going to get, 38% of the 25% Hispanic vote and sweep to victory." Amnesty is not the answer to wooing Hispanic voters to conservatism. Treating them as individuals with life stories and life experiences and deeply held principles, as opposed to broad stereotypes, is. Let's teach both immigrants and native-born Americans why American values are important, rather than pretending that a green card is going to buy conservatives' love. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or click here to give a quick donation.
What's your position on immigration reform, and do you believe, like some conservatives, that we need to slow the growth of total immigration?
I don't believe that we need to slow the growth of total immigration. As you know, somebody who my great-great-grandparents got here in the early 20th century, and then their extended family was all murdered in the Holocaust. But I'm a believer in immigration. What we have right now is, honestly, everybody should agree on immigration. It's the easiest issue in the world. Shut the border, figure out what to do with the people here. The only reason you even have to shut the border is because you have the welfare state. If there were no welfare state, then we could have free flow of people across the border. You could come in, you could work, you could leave, there'd be free commerce. You wouldn't be a net loss in terms of the tax dollar. You wouldn't be not paying taxes and then taking benefits. So you can have one of two things. You can either have a welfare state with very restrictive immigration, or you can have a non-welfare state with complete free flow of immigration. If we're going to have the welfare state, which realistically speaking we do, then what we have to do is we have to figure out how to shut the border now so that we're not incentivizing millions of more low education people to cross the low skill people who don't speak English to cross the border. And we actually start enforcing our visas because 40% of the folks who are here illegally have overstayed their visas that we gave them in the first place. And then we figure out what to do with the folks here. And in my view, whether that's a pathway to citizenship or whether that is a pathway to legalization, that doesn't become immediate until after the border is actually secure. Because until the border is secure, it's an open invitation to come in. Because how exactly are we going to tell? Is there a red stamp on your illegal immigration passport? There's no way to tell. If you come over today versus you came over 10 years ago, we can't tell that. There's no way to tell that. So the fact is that everyone sort of agreed on this going in, that it was going to be border security and then immigration reform. And then Barack Obama and Democrats in the Senate said that here's the new deal: border security, immigration reform, and no border security. And then they used that as a weapon to wield against Republicans. And again, this is an example of Republicans not understanding how the left operates. The left never wanted immigration reform. They wanted to run on immigration reform. The left wanted to be able to look in 2014 at all the Latinos and say to them, all the Hispanics, and say to them, look at these evil right-wingers. Look at these evil white-wingers. The reason they stopped immigration reform is because they hate you. Not because they have a rational, but because they hate you. Right? Obama could have done this during his first 2 years. He didn't. The reason he didn't is because he wants that issue as a club to divide people. And so we could come to an agreement on this. Everybody, left, right, center, basically agrees on the basic proposition that I'm stating right now, which is that you can't continue a free flow of immigration into a welfare system. But that's not politically advantageous. So my biggest problem is with both parties. I mean, the Republican Party, on the one hand, says the pro-immigration reform people who want to leave the border open say, on the one hand, we need more free labor for our businesses, which is a really kind of nasty way of churning through people, who don't have high education. It's not about American freedom. It's about we need them to pay our Social Security. I mean, they've actually said this, right? We need young Latino immigrants to pay Social Security for all the old white people. That's nasty. And on the left, you have people who want to leave the border open because those are all potential Democratic voters if you can just get them into the welfare state.